Yo, what up, YouTube? It's your man, King Howie. Welcome back to KHTV. Before I start this video, I would like to send a huge rest in peace, RIP, to one of my favorite boxers of all time, Pernell Whitaker, aka Sweet Pea, who passed away from a car accident. Send condolences to his family. The boxing world is shaken up this morning. Losing a legend like Pernell Whitaker. So rest in peace to him once again. All right, let's get into this shit. The NFL is pushing for a 18-game season, and the intel on this whole situation is that players will have to take at least 2 games off during a regular 18-game season. To me, this doesn't make any sense. Really, what fans wanted was to lower the preseason, just cut 2 preseason games out. But since this is all about making money and being the biggest sports brand in America, the NFL can at least generate, I think, $2.5 billion more of revenue for the Shield. But the Players Union has rejected this proposal. So 18 games. And this is all because of injuries in the preseason. This is all because of injuries in the preseason. You know, Jordy Nelson has a non-contact injury, tears his ACL. Other players getting concussions in preseason games. They want to limit that down. You know, your star players get hurt, banged up, beat up, because some young rookie is trying to make an impression on being a starter. Now, me personally, I don't think none of the big check guys should be playing in preseason at all. You know, you're going to go through just think about it. It gives your star players more rest going into the season with fresh legs. I understand, you know, you want to get out there and see how they looking in game speed, but preseason is not game speed. It's preseason. It's dudes trying to make the cut. You got to cut the roster down. You know what I'm saying? So you eliminate those 2. You eliminate 2 preseason games. You only need 2 preseason games to see what you need and what you don't need. And then you can start the season from there. Play 16 games, head into the playoffs. Now, in the NFL, the playoffs is like the most precious part of the season in the NFL. You know, this is the postseason is where the NFL makes their bread and butter. You know, Super Bowl playoff games, high TV ratings. You know, the fandom is just out of control. It's big for business. The bars are bringing in people, selling drinks, selling food. Families come together. More merchandise gets sold for the teams that are in the postseason. So the playoffs is the most precious thing for the NFL. But you want to add 18 games. And then you want to limit the players to playing 16, meaning they can sit out 2 games. So you have a team that's on the verge of potentially getting into the playoffs. And Your starting quarterback has had to play every game to keep the team in contention of not being eliminated. But then he got to sit out the last 2 games. Really, NFL? We already know that some of these teams mismanage the players anyway. And I have a feeling that something like that will happen. Especially like if let's say the quarterback gets hurt, right? Let's say Cam Newton, this is just hypothetical. Cam Newton gets hurt. You have Christian McCaffrey. He has to take on boatload of the responsibilities, but then they have a chance to make the playoffs, and Christian McCaffrey can't play the game because he's already at his limit of playing football games. If that's the case, just keep it at 16. What's the point of having 18-game season, but then a player got to miss 2 games? If that's the case, keep the damn preseason at 4. Aaron Rodgers not going to play the first 2 games of the preseason anyway. Cam Newton not going to play the first 2 games of preseason anyway. What's the point of having that shit? 18 games. So the players rejected that. Now, along with that, them proposing this 18-game season, you'll have to add more to the roster, more players to the roster. And this is, they trying to do all this before the next CBA agreement so they can avoid a lockout. You have to add more depth to the roster. The players are going to have to get paid a little extra more money if you want 18 games. I believe more players will get hurt. And I believe more players will slack off. I don't like this proposal at all. I think it's dumb. I mean, just cut 2 preseason games and still have the regular 16-game season. You'll make more money that way because you'll have more players to play. You know, a lot of guys won't be injured if you do it that way. I think injuries will go down. But it's all about making money. Now, president of the Packers, Mark Murphy, had a great idea, I think. What he proposes is a 17-game season. You still cut the 2 preseason games. And the 17-game season is designed to have 16 games be played either at a neutral site or internationally. Meaning you can have a game played in Portland or at a neutral site where, you know, there's football fans, but not really a football team. Or you could have it played at a college stadium where you can still generate money where there's just a college football team, but there's no professional NFL football team. Or you could have the game played internationally. Brazil, China, Australia, you know. And it seems like the players and the players union are really gravitating more to this idea than the 18-game season. The Shield, the NFL, the owners, they will be meeting for the next 3 days to come up with a solution for this. And I think a lot of people are going to roll with Mark Murphy's idea, because it seems like they can make way more money that way. You know what I'm saying? Um, you never know. Wyoming could have a football game. An NFL football game could be played in Wyoming. I don't know where, but it could be played in Wyoming, a place that doesn't have an NFL team. So I like the Mark Murphy proposal um, better than what Roger Goodell and the other owners are trying to come up with. I think 18 games is a bit too much for NFL players, especially when they want you to your star player to sit out 2 games. Does he sit it out the third week? If it's 18 games, will there be another bye week? So a lot of things have to be put into consideration or looked at under a microscope when dealing with this type of proposal that the NFL is trying to implement. It's not going to happen this upcoming season. This is just for, future reference. But if they're trying to push the guidelines of this heavily right now and aggressively, then I think that maybe next season we might see our first 18 NFL game or 17 NFL game season, which will change the landscape of how teams will have to prepare, especially if they're going to let you put more people on the roster, or add more people to the practice squads. But ultimately, the NFL is changing. Just like the NBA is changing, the NFL is trying to change too. As far as player safety, I think that's going to be the biggest issue. Player safety and pay increase. And I believe the NFL is doing this to have a little bit more leverage over the players. Just watching what the NBA has done this past free agency period, it's opened the eyes of the NFL to see that the NBA is really going to be competing with the NFL in the next couple of years after what they just did. I mean, this NBA offseason was, out of this world. But 18 games, I mean, as a football fan, I'm going to watch it, but I don't like it, just because, you're starting to shift from tradition, how people are used to seeing things, and you kind of been programmed systematically to know what to expect when it comes to how the NFL is operated and the scheduling and things of that nature. But if you're trying to stretch it out to 18 games, will that potentially open up the can to add more football teams to the league? I think it does. Will we get more expansion teams added to the league? Will this shift the dynamic of how the game will be played? I mean, you already got these new rules coming into the league. You know what I'm saying? And the more and more we start moving in a direction of change, rules will change. So we won't know until the next couple of days what the NFL will decide about 18 games, but I think they're gonna gravitate to what Mark Murphy is trying to propose, 17 game season. I like that idea, better than 18 games. And don't get it twisted. If they're trying to make the league longer, don't get it twisted that there might be some kind of change to a playoff format. Do not get it twisted. So with that being said, man, oh, shout out to KDG. I was kind of wondering where he been at, but football season is coming up around and he dropping videos. So go check out KDG's videos, man, on YouTube. And we'll be coming with some more football stuff. I know a lot of people been DMing me about Melvin Gordon and stuff like that. I don't really like to get into players and their money. You know what I'm saying? Here's my thing. I think the Chargers are gonna re-sign him. You know what I'm saying? He wants to get paid. The Chargers gonna give him the money. I don't see him going nowhere else. But this whole thing with this player freedom and them dictating that I want to get traded and while they still under contract, I think that's gonna be nipped in the bud too in the CBA agreement. You know what I'm saying? I don't think they're just gonna let players just try to get out of their contract unless the team says so. So be looking forward to seeing a bunch of changes in the CBA agreement of how football will be in the next 5 or 10 years once they come up with an agreement. But I got a feeling that the president of the Players Union, Mr. Smith, I think he's going to try to sabotage some type of shit where we might potentially be looking at a lockout. Oh, man, you give somebody a little bit of power, man, they want to go the extra mile with it. But anyway, man, thanks for tuning in to the video, man. I wanted to send a shout out to somebody, man, but I forgot who I was going to send a shout out to. I'll probably remember it in the next video, but whatever, man. Shout out to the subscribers, man. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. And yeah, man, we're going to be dropping some more videos, man. And I'm out.